Welcome to Daily English with Subtitles. Today's story is called When the Prey Becomes the Hunter, a chilling tale of betrayal, secrets, and revenge. Watch carefully, follow along with the subtitles, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next story. Smart people take revenge differently. I was lying in bed when I heard something that shattered my world. My husband and my younger half-sister flirting with each other. Not only were they whispering sweet nothings, they were already plotting how to kick me out of the marriage with nothing. If they had set the trap so carefully, I decided I would play along. But one thing they didn't understand. Sometimes the prey turns into the hunter. My best friend Sarah Lynn asked me once while sipping on her drink, if the whole world was about to fall apart, like some kind of apocalypse, would you have any regrets? I shook my head and smiled faintly. No regrets. My life feels complete enough. Sarah rolled her eyes at me. You're so annoying. People like you always get bad karma. Her words turned out to be a prophecy. My name is Emily Dawson. I used to work as a forensic doctor, specializing in both forensic identification and criminal psychology. After I quit my government job, I started my own company that provided injury assessment services for insurance companies. Business had been smooth until now. That morning, I was submitting a quarterly case summary. The file was too large, so the upload was slow. While waiting, I checked the devices connected to my home Wi-Fi. Besides my phone and laptop, there was one more, a brand new iPhone phone. My husband, Daniel Carter, was sitting right next to me. Honey, I've been away on a business trip these past few days. Did we have any visitors at home? I asked casually. Daniel smiled calmly, eyes shifting ever so slightly to the bottom left, a subtle body movement psychologists recognize as recalling memories. No visitors. Why do you ask? On the surface, everything about his micro-expressions was normal. But I knew better. Normal didn't always mean innocent. Daniel had a PhD in physics. From nothing, he had built a successful company. We were both observers of human behavior, sharp thinkers who clicked intellectually. That's why we married. We thought we understood each other. But that new device on the Wi-Fi, it set off alarms in my head. That night, Daniel leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. Baby, I missed you so much. Our wedding night feels like yesterday. He was unusually gentle, more than usual, as if trying to prove something. But all I could think of was that strange phone. I turned away, feigning exhaustion. I'm too tired. He kissed my neck softly. You've been working so hard lately. Let me take care of you. I forced a smile, but my mind was racing. That iPhone 17, the newest flagship model, cost nearly $3,000. Would a woman who could afford such a luxury phone really need to piggyback on someone else's Wi-Fi? The thought gnawed at me, and then my phone screen lit up. Text message 1. Emily, your sister is pregnant. Text message 2. Attached. An image from City Hospital. The photo looked like it was taken secretly, from an angle that wasn't obvious. But it was clear enough. My half-sister, Rachel Dawson, was sitting in the waiting room, scrolling through her phone with a glowing smile. The smile of a woman expecting a child. And in her hands, unmistakable, the brand new iPhone phone. A chill ran through me. In the dim light, it wasn't just a phone. It was like a predator lurking in the shadows, fangs bared. I leaned back against Daniel, who was pretending to be asleep, his arms wrapped tightly around me. Rachel's pregnant, I whispered. Daniel's breathing hitched ever so slightly. He didn't respond. I narrowed my eyes and watched the faint glow from my phone screen reflect against his skin. I counted his heartbeats. A normal adult's resting heart rate is between 60 to 100 beats per minute. For American men his age, usually around 55 to 95 when asleep. But Daniel's heart was racing at 105. He wasn't asleep. He was terrified. I turned off my phone and lay still, pretending to drift off. His breathing gradually calmed, but sweat soaked his chest and arms. His heart betrayed him. A guilty man can fake many things, but not the rhythm of his pulse. The next morning, I played the part of a perfect wife. I made him breakfast, kissed him goodbye, and watched him leave for work. Then I drove across town. I had one destination in mind: Alex Torres. Alex was a hacker I'd met years ago during a gang-related case. He had once been a suspect, but thanks to my forensic analysis proving his innocence, he avoided prison. Since then, he owed me a favor. I showed up at his small apartment. "Alex, I need your help. Someone's been connecting to my Wi-Fi. I want to know who it is." He raised his eyebrows. "Emily, you know I can't get involved in messy personal stuff like this." But even as he protested, his fingers were already flying across the keyboard. Within minutes, he had forced the device offline. When it reconnected, it automatically sent packet data back to his laptop. On the screen appeared a mirrored image of the iPhone phone. And there she was, Rachel, smiling sweetly into the camera, tilting her head to a perfect 45-degree angle like she was in love. Alex whistled low. "Damn, guess your suspicion was right." "Open her hidden folder," I said coldly. A few keystrokes later, the screen filled with photos. My kitchen, my bedroom, my bathroom, my living room, even my wedding photo in the background while Rachel and Daniel kissed in front of it. My stomach turned. Alex glanced at me. "You want me to leak these online?" I shook my head. "No, not yet." Instead, I handed him Daniel's phone passcode. "Install monitoring software. I need his calls and messages recorded." Alex sighed but nodded. "Done. But you know this won't hold up in court, right?" "I know," I said, my voice icy. "This isn't for court. It's for me." That night, Daniel came home smiling, hugging me as though nothing was wrong. But I already knew. This wasn't about marriage anymore. This was about war. The night after I discovered everything, I couldn't sleep. Daniel's arms were around me, but instead of warmth, all I felt was ice. Every breath he took against my neck reminded me of the betrayal he was hiding. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, silently repeating to myself, "Don't lose control. Stay calm. If you show your hand too early, you'll lose everything." The next few days, I played my role as the perfect wife. I cooked breakfast, smiled when he came home, even let him kiss me goodnight. But behind that smile, I was planning. Through Alex's monitoring software, every text, every call Daniel made flowed directly into my hands. At first, it was small things, messages about work, a few exchanges with friends. But then came the ones that confirmed what I already knew. "Baby, when will you divorce her?" Rachel's voice trembled in a recorded call, both needy and impatient. Daniel chuckled softly. "Not yet. I still need time to figure out how to get her out with nothing. But soon. I promise." My fingers dug into the bedsheets as I listened. I wanted to scream, to break every dish in the kitchen, to rip his face apart with my nails. But instead, I sat quietly in my chair, the glow of my laptop washing over my face. He thought he was the hunter, but I was already building the cage. Rachel wasn't just playing the innocent little sister. She was ambitious. In another call, she whined, "Daniel, I don't want to wait anymore. What if she finds out? What if she ruins everything?" "She won't," Daniel said with confidence. "She trusts me too much. And besides, she doesn't even care about money. She gave up her shares in the company when I first started. She'll walk away empty-handed." I laughed bitterly in the dark. He was right. I had sacrificed everything for him. When he first launched his startup, I poured in my savings, stayed up nights with him, used my contacts to land his first clients. I never asked for equity. I thought marriage meant sharing everything. Now he wanted to throw me away like trash. Not so fast. The following morning, I looked at Daniel across the breakfast table. "Honey, I'm going to visit Sarah tonight. She's been upset and I promised I'd stay over." He looked up from his coffee, his expression soft, as if nothing was wrong. "All right, I'll miss you. Don't stay out too late." His voice was so smooth, so affectionate, that if I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed him. But all I could hear was the recording playing in my mind. Not yet. Soon. That night, instead of going to Sarah's, I met Alex again. His apartment smelled of coffee and burnt circuits, wires and gadgets scattered across the floor. "Emily," he said, spinning his chair toward me. "I've dug deeper. You need to hear this." He pulled up a folder. Inside were not just recordings of Rachel and Daniel, but also files showing Daniel's gambling debts. I froze. "Gambling?" Alex nodded grimly. "He's been playing high-stakes games in Macau for at least a year. Millions of dollars gone. He's been borrowing money to cover the losses." I clenched my fists. So, that was it? He wasn't just betraying me with my sister, he was destroying our future. If he went bankrupt, the debts wouldn't just fall on him. As his wife, I would be dragged down too. "This isn't just cheating," I whispered. "It's sabotage." Alex leaned back in his chair. "So what's the plan? You want me to collect more dirt? Enough to bury him in court?" I shook my head. "No, court won't give me what I want. Daniel hides things too well. If I divorce him now, I get nothing." I stared at the screen, Rachel's smiling face looking back at me. I don't just want a divorce. I want him ruined. The next step was to weaken his defenses. Daniel was always careful, always analytical. He treated life like a chessboard, calculating every move. If I wanted to outplay him, I had to make him believe I was the weaker player. So I pretended to be sick. Headaches, dizziness, forgetfulness, vomiting. Symptoms vague enough to be worrying, but hard to pin down. I let him take me to the hospital. During the checkups, I walked slowly, answered questions with hesitation, forced myself to gag in the bathroom. The doctors suggested I stay overnight for observation. Perfect. Daniel hovered by my side, his face full of worry. He kissed my forehead. "Don't worry, baby, I'll take care of you." His act was good, convincing even, but as soon as I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, he slipped out into the hallway, phone in hand. Through Alex's monitoring, I heard it all. "Trent, I can't stay long. She's in the hospital. Bring her some soup tomorrow. Tell her it's for me. If she asks, say the company needed me urgently." His voice was calm, calculated. He had built his alibi in seconds. I almost admired the efficiency. Almost, but nothing compared to the next call. It wasn't about work. It wasn't even about Rachel. It was about something darker. "Mr. Ma said the new girls are fresh out of college. We'll have a good time tonight." Trent, his childhood friend, said with a laugh. Daniel chuckled. "You know me too well. Keep a few with bigger assets. That's my type." I gripped my blanket so hard my nails cut through the fabric. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It wasn't just gambling. It was exploitation. Girls, barely out of school, being used, abused, discarded, and the man I had slept beside for years was part of it. I felt sick to my stomach. When I returned home after a few days, Daniel greeted me with flowers. He looked like the perfect husband, smiling, warm, supportive. If someone had seen us from the outside, they'd think we were happy. But inside me, something had shifted. I no longer wanted to save the marriage. I wanted to burn it down. After the hospital incident, I started playing a new role, the fragile wife who needed constant care. Every morning, I let Daniel help me sit up in bed, feed me breakfast, even adjust my blanket as if I couldn't manage on my own. To anyone else, I might have looked pathetic. But to me, it was strategy. The weaker I looked, the more he dropped his guard. One night, as he was massaging my shoulders, I whispered, "Daniel, sometimes I wonder if I'm holding you back. You've been working so hard. Maybe you deserve someone healthier, someone who can give you children." His hands froze for a split second. Then he kissed the top of my head. "Don't be silly. You're my wife. Nothing will change that." But his heartbeat betrayed him again. Fast, uneven. I closed my eyes, pretending to be comforted. Inside, I was laughing. He thought he was winning. He thought I was blind. But I was listening to everything. Every call, every text, every plan. That night, I replayed a recording Alex had captured earlier. Rachel's voice, soft and manipulative. "Daniel, when are you going to tell her the truth? She deserves to know she can't give you a child." Daniel sighed deeply. "If it weren't for her career connections, I never would have agreed to a childless marriage. But now that you're pregnant, things will change. The baby will be the heir to everything." The heir. My stomach twisted in disgust. So, this was their plan. Not only to replace me as his wife, but to erase me completely by giving my sister the child I supposedly couldn't. I remembered my mother. I was only 10 when she died. My father had remarried quickly, bringing Rachel and her mother into our home. From that moment, nothing was mine anymore. Not my clothes, not my toys, not even my father's affection. Every time I complained, my stepmother would sigh and say, "Emily, you're the older sister. You should give in." And Rachel would smile sweetly as she clutched whatever she had stolen from me. Even as a child, she knew how to play the innocent victim. Now, decades later, nothing had changed. She was still stealing. My husband, my home, my life. But this time, I wasn't that powerless little girl anymore. This time, I would take everything back. A week later, Daniel announced he was flying to Las Vegas for business meetings. I smiled and touched his arm. "Take care, honey. Don't overwork yourself." Inside, I knew the truth. He wasn't going for business. He was going to gamble. Through Alex's surveillance, I had already seen the pattern. Calls with Trent, encrypted chats about tables, coded mentions of chances and jackpots. Daniel thought he was clever, but gambling leaves digital traces. Transactions, travel receipts, debt collectors circling like vultures. If I timed it right, I could turn all of this against him. But before I could act, another secret dropped into my lap. Alex called me one evening, his voice low. "Emily, I found something else. About your mother." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. "There are old medical records. Your mother's death certificate said illness. But there are hospital notes about complications of pregnancy, early symptoms, miscarriage risk." My blood ran cold. My father had told me my mother died from a sudden illness, but if she had been pregnant. I thought of Rachel's words in a call. "Do you want me to end up like her mother?" A possibility began to form in my mind, so dark I didn't want to believe it. Had my stepmother been involved in my mother's death? Had Daniel known the truth all along? That night, I lay in bed next to Daniel, pretending to be asleep. In the silence, I could hear his shallow breaths. His phone screen glowed briefly as he texted someone. Probably Rachel. Probably about me. I stared at his silhouette, the man I had once trusted with my whole life, and I whispered to myself, "This isn't about survival anymore. This is about justice." The next morning, I played my role again. "Daniel," I said, clutching his arm weakly, "my head hurts. Can you stay with me today?" He smiled warmly. "Of course, I'll cancel my meetings." But the moment I drifted into sleep, he left the room and called Trent. "Book the table for tonight." "I'll be there." I smiled faintly under the blanket. "Perfect." That evening, after he left, I called Alex. "It's time," I said simply. Alex understood. He didn't ask questions. He never did. By midnight, I had every recording, every file, every photo compiled neatly. Daniel's gambling, his affair with Rachel, his exploitation with Trent, even hints that my mother's death wasn't natural. It was enough to destroy him. But I wasn't ready to use it yet. No. If I wanted maximum damage, I had to wait until the moment he least expected it. And that moment was coming soon. Because Daniel's birthday was just around the corner, and I had already decided his birthday would be the day his world collapsed. Daniel's birthday was less than 2 weeks away, and I was already laying the groundwork. For a man like him, appearances meant everything. He had grown up poor in a small town, and every family gathering, every holiday, he dressed like a king, showing off the life he had built. To him, reputation wasn't just pride, it was his armor. And that armor was exactly what I planned to break. One evening over dinner, I set the stage. "Daniel," I said softly, spooning soup into his bowl. "You've worked so hard this year. Maybe for your birthday, we should celebrate. Invite your family, your friends, your colleagues. Let them all see what a great man you've become." His eyes lit up immediately. "Really? You'd do that for me?" I smiled sweetly, hiding the fire in my chest. "Of course. You deserve it." In his mind, he thought he was winning again, that I was still the supportive wife, still proud of him. But in mine, I was already planning how to rip away his perfect mask in front of everyone he respected. Meanwhile, Rachel had become bolder. She came by the house more often, always pretending it was to take care of me, since I was still recovering from my hospital stay. She would cook in my kitchen, fold laundry in my living room, and even straighten my bed as if she already owned the house. Every time she looked at me, there was a glint in her eyes. Pity, superiority, triumph. Once, as she set a cup of tea on the table, she leaned in and whispered, "Emily, you don't have to work so hard anymore. Just rest. Soon I'll take over everything. You can relax and be free." Her smile was angelic. Her words were poison. I forced a laugh. "Rachel, you're such a sweet sister, always looking out for me." But inside, my blood boiled. Through Alex, I monitored Rachel's messages too. She wasn't hiding her ambition. "Daniel," she texted late one night, "when the baby is born, Emily won't matter anymore. We'll have everything." Daniel replied, "Don't rush. Let her keep thinking she's safe. The weaker she feels, the easier it will be to take everything from her." I stared at the words on the screen until my vision blurred. Weaker. Safe. They wanted me broken, powerless, discarded. Instead, I would make sure they were the ones begging for mercy. As Daniel's birthday approached, I pretended to be busy with party preparations. I called catering companies, booked a venue, and sent invitations. He watched me with satisfaction, never suspecting that every detail I arranged was a step closer to his downfall. Sarah, my best friend, noticed my exhaustion. One afternoon, she pulled me aside. "Emily, are you sure about this?" she asked quietly. "I mean, revenge? It's dangerous. What if it backfires?" I met her worried gaze and smiled faintly. "Sarah, I don't have a choice. They've already written my ending. All I'm doing is rewriting it." Sarah bit her lip, then hugged me tightly, then promised me one thing: don't lose yourself in the process. For a moment, her words pierced through my armor. But then I remembered Rachel's smirk, Daniel's lies, the recordings of their betrayal. "No," I whispered. "I've already lost too much. Now it's their turn." The night before Daniel's birthday, I staged one final performance. Lying in bed, I clutched his hand weakly. Daniel, I'm so glad we're celebrating tomorrow. I want everyone to see what an amazing husband you are. You've given me such a beautiful life. He squeezed my hand, his expression soft, almost touched. Emily, you don't know how much that means to me. His heart rate quickened again. Even in moments of affection, his body betrayed him. I closed my eyes, pretending to drift off, while inside I counted the hours. The day of the party arrived. The venue was a beautiful hillside resort, decorated with gold and silver. A massive screen displayed photos of Daniel's career highlights, his graduation, his company's milestones, his happy marriage with me. Guests mingled with champagne glasses, complimenting him, praising him, feeding his ego. Rachel floated through the crowd in a sleek dress, her hand brushing Daniel's arm whenever she thought no one was looking. And Daniel? He basked in it all, smiling like a king, shaking hands, soaking up admiration. To the guests, he was a success story. To me, he was already a corpse. I just hadn't buried him yet. As the evening went on, the host called Daniel to the stage. Everyone, let's welcome the man of the hour, Daniel Carter. Applause thundered through the hall. Daniel straightened his suit, adjusted his tie, and stepped up to the microphone. I watched from my seat, my hands folded neatly in my lap, my face the picture of a loving wife. But in my pocket, my phone vibrated once, a signal from Alex. The files were ready. Daniel began his speech, his voice steady, charming. He thanked his friends, his colleagues, his wonderful wife, Emily. And then, right on cue, the giant screen behind him flickered. The photos of his achievements disappeared. In their place, video clips began to play. Daniel in a casino, chips piled high, his face twisted in greed. Daniel whispering on the phone, telling Trent to keep the girls with bigger assets. Daniel kissing Rachel in my living room, our wedding photo blurred in the background. The crowd gasped, murmurs spread like wildfire. Daniel spun around, eyes wide. What the hell? The host stammered, trying to regain control, but it was too late. The damage was done. Rachel's face turned pale, her hands trembling as whispers filled the hall. And me? I simply sat there, tears slipping down my cheeks, playing the role of the betrayed wife. Inside, though, I was smiling, because this was only the beginning. The hall fell into chaos. Gasps, whispers, stares that burned holes through Daniel's carefully crafted image. He stood frozen on stage, the microphone slipping slightly in his hand, his face pale as ash. Daniel, is that really you? Someone in the crowd muttered. The videos looped again. Casino tables, sleazy phone calls, stolen kisses with Rachel. There was no way to deny it. Rachel staggered back, her high heels clattering against the polished floor. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, as if the child inside her might shield her from the storm about to come. I dabbed my eyes delicately with a tissue. To anyone watching, I looked devastated, humiliated. The perfect picture of a betrayed wife. But inside, my heart was pounding with a strange kind of satisfaction. The mask was off. Turn it off, Daniel roared, his composure snapping. He rushed to the edge of the stage, yelling at the staff. Shut it down right now. But no one moved. The guests were too busy whispering, phones raised, recording every second. This was exactly what I wanted. His shame captured forever? Impossible to erase. Finally, the screen went black. The silence that followed was louder than the scandal itself. Then a single sound cut through the air. Slap. It came from the front row. Sarah had stepped forward, her face flushed with rage, her palms still raised from striking him across the face. Daniel Carter, she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. You let Emily sacrifice everything for you, only to betray her like this? You're disgusting. Applause broke out. Not for him, but for her. Daniel's eyes darted around wildly, searching for sympathy, for someone to defend him. But all he saw were stares of contempt. That was when Rachel cracked. She stumbled onto the stage, clutching Daniel's sleeve, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Daniel, don't leave me," she sobbed. "Tell them the truth. The baby is yours. You love me, not her." The room erupted again. Guests gasped, murmuring, some even laughing at the audacity. Daniel shoved her away roughly, his voice cold and sharp. "Shut up, Rachel. You're nothing but—" But his words were drowned by the sound of her scream. Rachel had lost her balance and tumbled off the edge of the stage, landing hard on the floor. The crowd shrieked. Someone shouted to call an ambulance. Rachel lay there, whimpering, her hands clutching her stomach. I watched without moving. My eyes remained wide and wet with fake tears, but deep inside, I felt a chill of cruel irony. The baby they thought would erase me might never even be born. The party disintegrated. Guests rushed out, muttering about scandal and shame. The birthday celebration that Daniel had been so eager to flaunt had turned into a nightmare he couldn't wake from. In the chaos, I slipped away to a quiet corner. My stepmother Lila stood there, her hands trembling as she dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief. She caught my gaze and froze. For the first time, I saw fear in her expression. Not pity, not disdain, but raw fear. I walked toward her slowly. "Funny night, isn't it?" I whispered. So many secrets, suddenly spilling into the open. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Emily, you don't know what you're saying." I tilted my head. "Don't I?" "Because I think I know more than you imagine." I lowered my voice, leaning in close. "Tell me, what really happened to my mother?" Her eyes widened, a flicker of guilt flashing before she quickly looked away. That was all I needed. Later that night, back home, Daniel exploded. He stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. "What did you do, Emily?" he shouted, his face red with fury. I sat calmly on the edge of the bed, removing my earrings one by one. "What do you mean?" I asked softly. "You know damn well what I mean." He jabbed a finger at me. "Those videos, those files, how did you get them?" I looked up at him with tears brimming in my eyes, the perfect act of wounded innocence. "Daniel, I don't understand. I thought you loved me. I thought we were happy. But all along, you were with her, with Rachel." His anger faltered just for a second. Guilt washed over his face before pride forced it back down. "You'll regret this," he growled. "You think you can ruin me? You can't. I'll make sure you walk out of this marriage with nothing." I smiled faintly, the kind of smile that chilled even me. "We'll see about that." That night, after he fell into a restless sleep, I lay awake beside him, staring into the dark. The birthday party was only the first strike. The real war was just beginning, and I was ready to burn everything he cared about to the ground. His wealth, his reputation, his illusions, but most of all, I wanted the truth about my mother, the truth that would finally set me free. The days after the birthday party were like watching a kingdom crumble. Daniel tried to hold his head high, but everywhere he went, whispers followed. Investors pulled out of deals. Business partners stopped returning his calls. Friends who once toasted to his success now avoided his gaze. The scandal had spread online too. Videos from the party went viral, clipped and shared across every platform. Daniel Carter, the disgraced entrepreneur. That was his new title. And through it all, he still came home every night, pretending to be the same husband, pretending to sleep beside me as though nothing had changed. But I knew better. The cracks were widening. Rachel was still in the hospital. She had lost the baby. When I visited, she glared at me with hollow eyes, her face pale and gaunt. "This is your fault," she spat, her voice trembling. "You wanted this to happen." I simply sat by her bed, folding my hands neatly in my lap. "Rachel, you should rest. Stress isn't good for recovery." Her lips trembled with rage. "Daniel will never forgive you for this." I leaned closer, my smile sharp as glass. "No, Rachel. He'll never forgive you. You lost the only leverage you had. Without that baby, you're nothing to him." She slapped me across the face, but I didn't flinch. I just stood up, smoothed my skirt, and walked out without looking back. The sound of her sobs followed me down the hallway, echoing like music. Meanwhile, Daniel's financial troubles grew. One night, I overheard him on the phone, pacing in his office. "Trent, I need more time. Just 2 weeks. I'll win it back, I promise." His voice cracked with desperation. "Don't pressure me. I'll get the money. Just trust me." Trust. The word sounded laughable coming from his mouth. I knew exactly what he meant. He had borrowed from the wrong people, and the debt collectors were circling. Every morning, new envelopes arrived, letters marked urgent, phone calls demanding repayment. He tried to hide them from me, but I made sure to see everything. The empire he had built was rotting from within, and I was ready to push it over the edge. But before that, I needed the truth about my mother. I met Alex at a small cafe late one evening. The glow of his laptop reflected off his glasses as he slid a file toward me. "These are medical records I dug up from the old hospital archives," he said. "Your mother didn't die from illness, Emily. She was pregnant, about 10 weeks. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "She had symptoms of fatigue, nausea, dizziness," Alex continued. "Then sudden bleeding. She was rushed in, but the notes suggest there was an incident before the collapse. No details, just that the cause was external." I swallowed hard. "External? You mean someone pushed her?" Alex hesitated, then nodded. "It's possible, and Emily, there's one more thing. The attending physician listed on her file was connected to Lila, your stepmother. Same social circle, same church." My vision blurred. My hands trembled. For years, I had accepted the lie, that my mother simply grew sick and never recovered. But now the puzzle pieces were rearranging into something far more sinister. Had Lila killed her? Had Rachel's mother stolen not just my father's love, but my mother's very life? That night, I confronted Daniel. We were in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. He was pouring himself a glass of whiskey, his shoulders tense, his hair messier than usual. "Daniel," I said quietly, "what do you know about my mother's death?" He froze mid-pour. The amber liquid spilled over the rim of the glass. Slowly, he set the bottle down. "Why are you asking me that?" I stepped closer, my eyes locked on his. "Because you know something. I can see it in your face. Tell me the truth." For the first time, his confidence cracked. He looked away, his jaw clenched. I don't know everything," he muttered. "But your mother, she didn't just die. She was pregnant. Your stepmother found out. They fought. She fell. By the time she reached the hospital, it was too late." My knees almost gave out. It was true. All these years, the truth had been buried under lies. My mother hadn't just died. She had been pushed out of my life, piece by piece, until nothing remained. And Daniel had known. He had kept it from me. I stared at him, my voice trembling but sharp. "You knew. And you still married me. You still slept beside me every night while protecting her. Protecting them." Daniel reached for me, panic in his eyes. "Emily, please. It wasn't my secret to tell. I didn't want to hurt you." I stepped back, disgust curling in my chest. "You've been hurting me since the day we married. Don't you dare pretend this was about protecting me. For once, Daniel didn't have a response. He just stood there broken, his glass trembling in his hand. I turned and walked away, my decision crystallizing with every step. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice, for my mother, for myself, for everything they had stolen. That night, as I lay in bed, I whispered to the darkness, Daniel Carter, Lila, Rachel, every one of you will pay, and I will be the one to collect the debt. Daniel was unraveling. The man who once walked into every room with confidence now barely looked people in the eye. His company's stock was plummeting, clients were suing, and the whispers about his scandal were no longer whispers. They were headlines. Daniel Carter, from physics prodigy to fallen fraud. Entrepreneur exposed in affair with wife's sister. Gambling and exploitation, the double life of a tech CEO. Every article cut deeper into his reputation, and I made sure each one had the evidence to back it up. Behind the scenes, I was methodical. With Alex's help, I had quietly compiled every file, bank records of his gambling debts, messages arranging shady meetings with Trent, audio recordings of Rachel confirming the affair. But I didn't leak everything at once. No, that would have been too merciful. Instead, I fed the media piece by piece, like a slow poison. One day it was his gambling. The next, it was his affair. Then came the whispers of illegal escorts. Each revelation chipped away at him, until he was a hollow version of the man he once was. Daniel tried to fight back. He called lawyers, threatened defamation suits, tried to bribe reporters to retract stories, but every attempt backfired. The evidence was airtight, undeniable. Even his closest business partners abandoned him. One evening, I overheard him on the phone, his voice hoarse with desperation. Please, just give me an extension. I'll sell the house, the cars, whatever you want. Just don't call the police. When he hung up, he stumbled into the living room, collapsing into a chair with his head in his hands. For the first time, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered my mother, and Rachel, and the years of lies, and any flicker of pity burned away. Meanwhile, I had begun my own quiet war against Lila. The truth about my mother's death was like a knife lodged in my chest, but I wasn't going to let it stay buried. Through legal contacts from my forensic days, I pushed for the hospital records to be reopened. It wasn't easy. Decades had passed, but corruption leaves, fingerprints, and I knew where to look. Soon, whispers began to surface in our hometown. Questions about whether my mother's death had really been an accident, whether Lila had been more than just a grieving widow who remarried. Every time I visited her, I saw the cracks in her mask. Her hands shook more, her eyes darted nervously. Emily, let the past go, she pleaded once. Digging it up will only hurt you. I leaned close, my voice icy. The past already hurt me. Now it's your turn. Rachel eventually left the hospital, but she wasn't the glowing, smug woman she had been before. She was gaunt, pale, her eyes rimmed red. The loss of the baby had hollowed her out. She showed up at my door one rainy afternoon, drenched and shaking. Emily, she whispered, her voice broken. Please, don't do this. Don't ruin him. Don't ruin us. I stared at her for a long moment, then opened the door wider. Come in. For a second, hope lit her eyes. She stepped inside, dripping water across my floor. And then I shut the door behind her and said, You already ruined yourself, Rachel. I'm just showing the world who you really are. Her lips trembled. But I loved him. I laughed bitterly. So did I. Her tears fell freely then, but I felt nothing. She had stolen too much from me to deserve my compassion. As Daniel's debts mounted, he grew paranoid. He accused me of betrayal, of conspiring against him. Emily, admit it, he shouted one night, his face twisted with rage. You did this. You're the reason everything is falling apart. I stood calmly, arms crossed, watching him unravel. Daniel, I said softly, you did this to yourself. I just stopped cleaning up your mess. The fury drained from his face, replaced by something worse. Fear. For the first time, he realized he wasn't in control anymore. The final blow came when the authorities got involved. Alex had anonymously forwarded files about Daniel's illegal gambling operations and ties to organized crime. Within days, investigators were circling, freezing accounts, demanding records. One morning, I watched from the window as unmarked cars pulled into our driveway. Men in suits stepped out, badges flashing. Daniel stumbled out the front door, shouting protests as they surrounded him. "This is a mistake. I'm innocent," he yelled, his voice cracking. But his words fell on deaf ears. They led him away in handcuffs, past neighbors who had gathered to watch. And me? I stood on the porch, clutching my robe around me, tears streaming down my face for the cameras. The betrayed wife, abandoned and humiliated. The perfect victim. Inside, though, I was calm. This was exactly where I wanted him. Powerless, disgraced, broken. That night Sarah came over. She held my hand tightly, her eyes searching mine. "Emily, it's over. You've won." I shook my head slowly. "No, Sarah. This isn't about winning. Not yet. Not until the truth about my mother comes out. Not until Lila pays." Sarah's eyes widened. "Emily, how far are you willing to go?" I looked at her, my voice steady, cold. "As far as it takes." The day Daniel was led away in handcuffs, I thought I would feel peace. But that night, staring at the ceiling in the dark, I realized my chest was still heavy. Daniel was ruined. Yes. Rachel had lost the child she thought would crown her queen. But one shadow remained, larger than them both. Lila, the woman who had stolen my father, my childhood, and, I now knew, my mother's very life. Until her mask was ripped away, none of this would be finished. The last puzzle piece. Alex called me one evening. His voice was sharp with triumph. "Emily, I found it. The attending physician who wrote your mother's file. He left behind private notes, hidden in the hospital's digital archive. Turns out, he suspected foul play. He wrote that your mother showed signs of being pushed or struck before she collapsed. He didn't dare put it in the official report. Too much pressure from someone powerful." "Lila," I whispered. "Exactly. And get this. Your stepmother paid him off through a shell account. I have the transfers." I gripped the phone so tightly, my knuckles turned white. Finally, proof. The dinner I invited Lila to dinner at my house, just the two of us. She arrived in pearls and perfume, carrying that fake grace she had perfected over decades. "Emily," she said sweetly, "it's been such a difficult time for all of us. I hope you're holding up." I smiled faintly. "I'm stronger than you think." We sat across from each other, the table between us like a battlefield. Halfway through the meal, I slid a folder across to her. "Do you want to explain this?" Her hands trembled as she opened it. Bank transfers, hidden notes from the physician, evidence that linked her to my mother's death. Her face drained of color. "Emily, please. You don't understand." "No." My voice cut like a blade. "I understand perfectly. You killed her. You stole everything from her. From me." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was desperate. Your father was slipping away, and she was pregnant again. If she had that child, there would have been no place for Rachel and me." Her words hit me like acid. She had taken my mother's life for her own ambition. I leaned forward, my voice a whisper of steel. "And now there will be no place for you." Public exposure. The next morning, I delivered everything to the authorities, anonymously. The scandal spread like wildfire. News outlets screamed headlines. New evidence suggests foul play in death of Emily Dawson's mother. Stepmother Lila Dawson under investigation for homicide. Neighbors who once praised her elegance now crossed the street to avoid her. Old friends turned their backs. She became a pariah overnight. Rachel confronted me days later, her face hollow, her voice shaking. "You destroyed her. You destroyed all of us." I looked at her calmly. "No, Rachel. She destroyed herself. Just like you did." Her lips quivered, but she had no fight left. She turned and walked away, a ghost of the sister who once smirked in my kitchen. Daniel's fall. Daniel's case moved fast. With the recordings, the financial evidence, and the testimonies piling against him, conviction was inevitable. Fraud, illegal gambling, soliciting trafficking networks. The charges stacked higher and higher. I attended one of the hearings, sitting quietly in the back. When Daniel was brought in, shackled, he looked around the courtroom, and for the first time, his eyes found mine. There was no anger there anymore, no arrogance, just hollow defeat. "Emily," he mouthed silently. I tilted my head, watching him with a calm he would never understand. This was the man I once loved, the man I once built a life with. Now he was nothing more than a stranger in chains. Closure weeks later, I returned to my mother's grave. For the first time in years, I brought fresh flowers. I knelt down, brushing the leaves from her name. "Mom," I whispered, my voice trembling. "It's over. They can't hurt us anymore. You can rest now, and so can I." The wind rustled through the trees, soft and gentle, as if she was answering. For the first time in decades, I felt light. Epilogue. Daniel Carter, convicted, sentenced, stripped of everything he once had. Rachel Dawson, abandoned, childless, forgotten. Lila Dawson, disgraced, exposed, a murderer in society's eyes. And me? I walked away from the ashes, not broken, not bitter, but reborn. Because revenge isn't just about making them pay. It's about reclaiming yourself. And I had done exactly that. 3 years later, the city had changed, and so had I. The old house where I once lived with Daniel had been sold long ago. I moved into a smaller place overlooking the river. Quiet, sunlit, with shelves full of books instead of shadows full of secrets. My days were simple now. Coffee on the balcony at sunrise, long walks with Sarah, who had stood by me through everything. Work that still involved forensic consulting, but only on cases I chose, ones that brought justice, not greed. There were no more hidden recordings, no more late-night whispers of betrayal, no more fear that someone I loved would stab me in the back. Just peace. One afternoon, Sarah joined me on the balcony. She leaned back in her chair, sipping her iced tea. "You know," she said, squinting at me with a smile, "if this were a movie, this is where the credits would roll. Strong woman survives, defeats the villains, lives happily ever after." I laughed softly. "Life isn't a movie, Sarah. Happily ever after is just living without regret." She tapped her glass against mine. "Well then, cheers to that." Sometimes memories still came back. Daniel's eyes the day he was arrested. Rachel's trembling voice after losing the baby. Lila's face when I confronted her with the truth. But those memories no longer burned. They were just scars, reminders of a war I had survived. I touched the small silver locket around my neck, the one I had restored with my mother's picture inside. For years, I couldn't bear to wear it. Now it never left me. "Mom," I whispered sometimes when the breeze swept in from the river. "I'm okay. You don't have to worry anymore." And in those moments, I swore I could almost feel her smile in the sunlight. In the end, Revenge hadn't destroyed me. It had rebuilt me. Because sometimes the only way to reclaim your life is to burn down the lies that took it from you. And from those ashes, I rose again. Thank you for watching today's episode on Daily English with Subtitles. If you enjoyed When the Prey Becomes the Hunter, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more stories to learn and enjoy every day.